Hey, we're here with Don Stevenson. He's walking across America, raising money for pulmonary hypertension. He's staying with us at the Haven on Vine tonight. Thought it'd be good to go live on Periscope and let you guys hear his story because it's a pretty good one. So I'll pass the mic off to him and he can tell us more about who he is and what he's doing.
Hello, I am Don Stevenson, known as the Pacing Parson, and I've walked thousands of miles for others. In fact, since 1998, I've walked over 50,000 miles, and it has all been for others. I started my walking back in 1996. I was writing, and I'd written about 10 books and scores of children's stories. And I spent so much time in my office, I had to get out of there. And so I started walking. And after walking several miles for a few days, I told my wife I would like to walk across America. But I didn't want to do it for myself, because if I did it for myself, I wouldn't have made it out of the county I lived in. So her father had died with Alzheimer's, and I decided I would do this walk for Alzheimer's and walk from Seattle to Portland, Maine to the headlight there and call it Walking to the Light for Alzheimer's. It was a successful walk. We raised several thousands of dollars and lots of awareness. After that, I walked around all the lighthouses in Washington State. There were over 20 some lighthouses, and continued to walk for Alzheimer's to the light. And after that, I got a call from someone up in Anchorage, Alaska, asking if I would walk for multiple sclerosis. I had thought about it and prayed about it, and I told the lady that yes, I would walk for multiple sclerosis. And she said, well, where are you going to walk? And I told her I was going to start at the Mexican border near Tijuana and walk all the way to Anchorage, Alaska. And she kind of gasped a little bit at that long distance. But I told her, we'll do it. And so we started out on Valentine's Day, and I called this the world's longest Valentine because I was showing love for people with MS. We made it into Anchorage, Alaska, the latter part of August. We started on, like I say, on Valentine's Day. And that was a good walk. And afterwards, I decided to walk for multiple sclerosis from Seattle to New York City. That walk was dedicated to my sister who had MS. And my brother had died with MS, so it wasn't hard for me to decide to walk for that. And actually, I walked through Ohio and down into Westerville near Columbus and walked to my sister's house, gave her a big hug, and then continued walking. And from there, I walked across West Virginia and Philadelphia and on into not Philadelphia, pardon me. That was the original plan. But I walked through Pennsylvania and on into New York City. But before we got to New York City, I told my wife we were 4 days behind schedule. We were to be at the World Trade Center on Friday, but I said we're going to have to be there on Tuesday because we were so far behind schedule. And she said, no, we're going to be there. The MS Society and the media were going to be there. They've already planned to be at the Trade Center at 9 a.m. that morning on Friday. And so she found shortcuts for me. And we got to New York according to my plan. I did a tour of New York City on the Gray Line tour the day before I walked in on my final mile. And on this tour, we went up to the top of the World Trade Center. And while I was up there looking out over the city, I told my wife I wanted to get out of here. And she asked me why. I said, I'm afraid an airplane could hit these towers, and I didn't want that to happen. And for some reason, and I'm not afraid of heights, but it just bothered me because I thought, you know, a plane come by and hit it. And she said, well, what about our pictures to prove that we were at the World Trade Center? I said, I don't want to wait for those pictures. I want to get out of here. And so we left. And the next day I made my final mile at the World Trade Center. And because I had a speaking engagement in Ohio and one in Michigan, we had to leave right away. And when I was in Ohio, down near Columbus, we went into this restaurant, and my wife showed the hostess pictures of how we went to New York City and walked to the World Trade Center. And she was really amazed that I had walked that far. Well, we were seated and waiting on our meals, and this waitress comes running into us, said, Mr. Stevenson, a plane just ran into the World Trade Center. And we thought it was an accident. And a few minutes later, she came back and she said, another plane hit the other tower of the center. Right then it dawned on us that this was no accident. But I was thinking, I told my wife we were going to be there on Tuesday. She said, no, we're going to be there on Friday. And she found that shortcut. But had we been there on Tuesday, as I suggested, we would have been there right during the time that the towers were hit. So I appreciated that God watched over us then. And I have the moral to this story is that once in a while a man should listen to his wife. But my wife has given me good protection, and she's really a good hard worker. On this walk, before I started, I pastor seniors in my church. I'm with the Church of the Nazarene, and this is in Bonnie Lake, Washington. And one of my seniors had this disease, pulmonary hypertension, and I'd visit her in the hospital. I'd sing to her and pray with her. And I told her one day, I said, Betty, God willing, I'll walk for pulmonary hypertension and dedicate the walk to you. And she thought that was great. And 2 weeks later, she went home to be with Jesus. So I'm keeping my commitment for her and for another senior in our church who has the same disease. She's doing a good battle, but it's up and down, and she's a precious woman. She loves God. And I told her, I said, Dorothy, it's against the law for you to leave before I get back from this walk. And she said, I'll try. So right now she's still trying. I know that was kind of selfish of me because, you know, when you go to be with Jesus, you're through with all your problems. They're all over. And she's hanging on in this little tent that we call a body, waiting to leave it. But she's waiting till I get back. And I'm doing this in her honor. And another young man that I walk for and dedicate this walk to, he was 8 years old when he was diagnosed with the disease. And the doctors told him he needed a double lung and a heart transplant. And without this, he would die. And so they put a pack on his back with a pump in it, and the pump every 6 minutes would inject medication to his heart and lungs to keep him alive. And he walked around with this for 6 years, having to be medicated like this. And his mama, she was quite a worrywart, and she watched over to make sure he didn't get too active. He couldn't play baseball or any of the things the little boys love to do. And I helped to raise money for him so he could go from Seattle to Stanford University area at the hospital there. And and they were checking him out regularly. But they needed $75,000 in expense money. So I walked all around the state of Washington, the perimeter, and it was almost 2,000 miles, and to raise awareness for this little guy. And when we got back into Auburn, he was standing there waiting for me. They were going to give a concert for him. And when I came up to him, he had a card in his hand, and he gave it to me. And he said, "I want to give this to you and thank you, and you're my pal." I thought that was really sweet. You don't call a person a pal unless you really love them. And he gave me a little St. John medal. He's a Roman Catholic boy. And so I accepted that. And then we did raise $85,000 for his expenses. And the money that was left over, they would give to children who needed this. So the money wasn't wasted or given to a different cause. It was for him and for other children who needed organ transplants. Well, since that time, last year, the boy was called down. He was in Seattle, and they had a jet standing by because they only had 4 hours if they had organs for him to get there in time that they could transplant them. And they flew him down there, and while he was on the operating table, the surgeon looked at the organs, and this little guy wasn't put under yet, and he said, "These won't do," and he threw them away. And I can imagine the emotional trauma this little guy went through, knowing he was there ready to get them, and they had to throw them away. But they flew him back to the Seattle area, and a few weeks later, they had another call saying they had organs for him. And this time, when he went down, they did do a successful transplant, double heart, double lung, and heart. And this was last fall. And the little guy's doing good. His mom's watching organs and keeping him away from any possibility of infection with other kids. And I guess strengthening so he can overcome any rejection of the organs. But he's doing great. In the last words, when he was in an interview with a medical magazine, they asked him, he said, "Cullen, what suggestion would you give to others with this disease?" And he said, "Never give up hope." I thought that was really great out of a young man like that. Anyway, back to this walk. I left the Seattle area on June 9th and began my walk seriously. And I've been going ever since, 30 miles a day. And we have been raising money and awareness for research, and God has helped us. We've met a lot of wonderful people, people like you. You've been so gracious and good to us. And all across America, every time we needed a place to stay, our motel and hotel owners have given us free lodging. And we paid for lodging along this way for over 120 days that I'm on the road. It would have cost me well over $12,000. And we're not paid to do this. We're doing it out of love. And I believe that's the only way that we can do anything, regardless of what we're doing. We do it out of love. And I believe this is the Spirit of Christ, is this love that we have for others. I found that the person with the greatest peace of mind is a person who cares for others. And the person who is miserable is the one who only thinks of himself. So we have to let our love show the love of Christ. And this is a way that the world can tell that we are of Christ, is because of the love that we have. And if we don't show that love, how's the world going to know that we are a follower of Jesus Christ? And it's so important. I just feel like this walk, I feel so unworthy on this walk to be here like this. And I remember when I was going through Minot, North Dakota, there was a young man who had just come back from Afghanistan. And he received the Congressional Medal of Honor for what he had done. His position was being overrun by 300 Taliban. And to him and his comrades, they repelled them. And this young man, he was injured 3 times, but he still fought on and led his men until they repelled them and they were safe. And he wanted to walk with me. And he said, it'd be an honor to walk with you, Don. And I told him, no, you got that backwards, Clint. I'm honored to walk with you. You've done a lot to keep our country safe from terrorism by what you've been doing, and all the other servicemen who are over there fighting for us. I don't have to agree with everything that goes on as far as government policy is concerned, but I know these young men put their life on the line for us. And I told them I can walk clear across America and not worry at all about terrorism or someone attacking me while I'm on the road. We really live in a reasonably safe country, and we have a lot to thank our servicemen for this. But I'm going to make it in Silver Springs, Maryland, the 28th of this month. The Lord willing, I will. And the walk will be over. And then my wife and I, we can pack up and go home. We have to visit her brother in Alabama. He's been very ill. And then from there, we're going to go back up to Seattle. And God has helped us to testify along the way. One man asked me the other day when I was walking, he said, Don, I want you to bless me. And so I bowed my head and prayed for the young man. And he really thanked me for it. And I've had people come up to me who really needed counsel and needed prayer. And I'd pray with them. This isn't just about charity. This is about showing Jesus Christ through our lives and through the way we live. And I know I'm not the most educated person in the world, and I know I lack a lot of talent, but I do know that God will use what I have. In Hebrews chapter 13, it said, let not your conversation be with covetousness. Now, word conversation means your whole life. Don't covet things. Don't want everything. It said, but be content with whatsoever things you have. Now that's a real searching statement. With what we have, be content. And don't worry about getting a new car, new equipment for your theater, only when God wants you to have it. But I've learned, I've been wanting a bigger vehicle because our car is so cramped up. Well, you saw it. And it looks like a real homeless person's car. But, you know, I was thinking about getting a car when we come through Detroit. Didn't tell my wife about it. And I thought, you know, this should do. He said to be content with what you have. And so I'm content with what I have, even if I don't want to be. But when he said be content with whatsoever things you have, you know what he said next? He said, for he has said, I will never leave thee nor forsake thee. That really means a lot, that we know he's there all the time. And it says that we may boldly say, the Lord is my helper. Say it boldly, not weakly, not meekly, not doubtfully, but say it aloud so that the devil can hear it. The Lord is my helper, and I'm trusting him today. I appreciate you letting me take over your microphone. But one reason why I do this, and I'm going to sing to you, is that okay? I'm going to tell you why I do what I do. And you've probably heard this song before. I sing a cappella. Sometimes my wife thinks I should be under the pillow instead of singing a cappella. But we'll do our best. If I could help somebody as I pass along, if I can cheer somebody with a word or song, if I can keep somebody from going wrong, then my living will not be in vain. Then my living will not be in vain. Oh no, my living will not be in vain. If I can just help somebody as I pass along, then my living will not be in vain. Thank you. Yeah, that's it.
Yeah, thank you. Don is 79 years old, was a Marine, a pastor, and is walking 30 miles a day out of love. That's pretty inspiring. If someone wants to make a donation for pulmonary hypertension or wants to learn more about you, you have some websites that they can go to.
Here's one here.
If you want to learn more about Don and his journey or make a donation for pulmonary hypertension research, you can go to phassociation.org/pacingparson. phassociation.org/pacingparson. Well, thank you so much for sharing your journey with us, and just pray for God's blessing the rest of the way on the road, and glad that he brought you through Marion and to stay with us tonight.
Thank you, Dustin.
Thank you.